the Daily News Simplified, and today is 5th of September. Now, in today's DNS, we'll be handling 5 important articles which you can see on your screens. And before moving forward, please make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, one announcement. Right now, there's heavy rain outside, so there's a very much possibility of a power disconnection. And in that case, it takes 1 or 2 minutes for the router for reset. So we'll be live as soon as possible. So right now, let us start with the first article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Hindu newspaper as well as in the Indian Express newspaper. Now, both of these articles, they highlight that the central government and the state government of Tripura, they have signed a peace accord with insurgents group in the state. Now, this peace accord with insurgent group, this highlights the menace of insurgency in the areas of northeast India, that is Seven Sisters states. And this news article, they are important from GS paper 3 syllabus because as you can see in the syllabus, it highlights linkages between development and spread of extremism, and rather lack of development in northeastern states have resulted into spread of extremism. Also, these states are located in border areas, specifically borders related to China, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. That is why it is a security challenge for the security forces, and the management is also mentioned in the syllabus. Further, if you can see the mains exam, questions have appeared in the mains of the year 2019 on exact this topic. That is why this topic is very much important from mains examination perspective. So, in this regard, let us understand what is this insurgency in the northeast region of India. Now, this insurgency movements have been of various kinds. For some example, in states such as Nagaland, the Naga tribes they are demanding a separate country that is Greater Nagaland. So these are also separatist movements. But whereas on the other hand, there are several other movements in the area that is demand for a separate state of Bodoland, Gorkhaland. These can be termed as a sub-regional movement. So the term insurgency highlights the blanket term, that is both violent movements that demand for a separate nation or a separate region highlights the insurgency nature in the northeastern region. Now, what are the reasons that we have witnessed insurgency, particularly in the northeast part of our country? The first reason is that the delineation of boundaries of these states since independence of India has been ignored the ethnic and cultural specificities of the various inhabitants. For example, there is a tribe called Naga. Now, this Naga tribe primarily inhabits not just the state of Nagaland, but also bordering areas such as in states of Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Assam, and even in areas of Myanmar. So you can understand there is a presence of tribal across various states. And there is similar case with respect to other tribals also. That is why there is no state identity with respect to particular tribal. That is why the tribes in the area or local inhabitants they have some sense of insecurity. Also, you can understand this area witnesses lack of development because not just it is disconnected from our mainland and it is just in touch of our mainland through a thin strip called Siliguri corridor, and also because of the porous region and hilly terrain there has been lack of economic and industrial development in the region. And because of this, the local population it is more dependent on extracurricular activities such as uh, illegal activities, and this highlights the lack of development in the region. Also, since the Indian independence, we have witnessed migration of people into the northeastern states. This can be illegal migration from neighboring countries such as Bangladesh and Myanmar, and also migration of people of mainland into the states of northeast. Now, this first of all, lack of development and lack of resources, and when these resources are being utilized by more and more people, this creates a sense of insecurity among the local population. Also, in less developed areas, we witness large presence of state, that is, state administration department, who are responsible for undertaking welfare activities. But have such welfare activities and their impact reached the people of northeastern state? The answer again is no, because of presence of widespread corruption. Also, this kind of insecurity that exists due to these factors in the northeastern states have been supported by our neighbors as well, such as insurgent groups which are present in Myanmar, and also by the state apparatus of countries like China. Hence, because of this support which is extended by our hostile neighbors, the problem of insurgency not just emerged in Northeast, but it has continued since many decades. Now, to deal with such insurgency measures, the government of India, along with the respected government of various states, have come up with various measures. The first, and is the conduction of military operation. Now, there is a special legislation which has been passed called Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which gives wide powers to the army and defense forces. Now, these forces, they are also given immunity and protection from arrest, which means that they can undertake military operations without further interference. Now, this military operations, not just by Indian armed forces, but also by armed forces of our neighboring countries such as Bhutan, Bangladesh, as well as Myanmar, has resulted into death and arrest of many insurgents in the region. Also, is government only undertaking kinetic measures? The answer again is no. Why? Because government is also participating in dialogues and is signing peace agreement with various tribals. For example, this agreement which has been highlighted in the news. Now, the purpose of taking dialogues and signing peace agreement is to ultimately restore peace and tranquility in the region. And under these peace agreements, the government also give an option to the cadres of these insurgents group that they can sign surrender agreements, and based on these surrender agreements, the government is giving them stipend, is giving them settlement option, and is also providing them with vocational training. So you can understand government is not just undertaking hard measures, but they are also undertaking several soft measures to promote or to discourage the insurgency movements. Further, the government is extending protection to locals, both political and geographical protection. By political protection, I mean the government is extending constitutional provisions such as sixth schedule to the areas of Northeast. Now, in this sixth schedule, the areas of Northeast, they are brought under sixth schedule, and the locals that are tribals, they are given autonomy over their region. That not just they can protect their cultural lineage, but they can also administer themselves without external interference. Now, in terms of geographical protection, the government is prohibiting the entry of foreigners and people from other parts of the country. How? Through protected area protection measures as well as inner line permit, which prohibits the entry of outsiders into these tribal areas. So this is how government is extending both political and geographical protection to the tribals of the region. Also, government is undertaking economic and infrastructure development in the region, primarily economic development such as uh, making or promoting the use of organic farming practices, and also promoting the cultivation of oil seeds in the region, which will bring much more income to the farmers of the region. The government is also undertaking construction of many power projects which will harness or utilize the hydropower potential of the region. And in terms of infrastructure development, government is undertaking construction of trilateral highway, that is Indo-Myanmar and Thailand highway, in addition to construction of Kaladal multimodal transport corridor, which is again intended to develop the economy of the region. So this is how government is dealing with the insurgents through military measures. It is discouraging insurgency by bringing dialogue and surrender policy. It is also extending protection to local people so as to reduce their insecurity. And it is also undertaking their economic development. However, despite various such measures, there are also challenges, such as many challenges, which we'll discuss one by one right now. Now, first challenge in this regard is the dual responsibility of forces in the region. primarily being the CAPF called Assam Rifles. Now, this CAPF is responsible not just guarding the borders of India with Myanmar, but it is also dealing with the insurgency movement in the states of Northeast. Now, this dual responsibility creates many challenges for the forces because any force would want to undertake just one responsibility. Also, there exists a free movement regime currently with India and Myanmar. Now, this free movement regime promotes movement of local people beyond a certain kilometer across the border, and they can move to other country without any passport. Now, this free movement regime originally was brought to promote trade between the local population. However, this regime has also been misused by insurgent groups and also narcotic groups, which undertake various illegal activities under the garb of free movement regime. Also, as I've already highlighted, the insurgency groups in the region have been supported by many external players also, be it players located in countries like Myanmar or even the state apparatus of countries like China, which not just provides funding but also the arms and ammunitions to these insurgents group, which again creates many challenges for our security forces. Also, in order to undertake infrastructural and economic development of the region, there are multiple bodies and agencies who are responsible. For example, construction of border roads, they are done by Border Road Organization, whereas construction of national highways, it is undertaken by National Highway Authority of India. As far as ministries are concerned, there is this Department of Northeast Region, which is responsible for development of the region. And also there are various projects which are undertaken by different departments. So multiple bodies and agencies, it creates a problem of coordination in the region. Also, because of this existence of multiple bodies and lack of coordination, we have witnessed delays in project implementation, be it Indo Myanmar Thailand Trilateral Highway or the Kaladan Multimodal Transport Corridor. So, all of these projects have been delayed immensely. Why? Because multiple bodies are executing it and they are lack of coordination between these bodies. So, in this regard, what should be the way forward on how to deal with insurgency, which even today exists in the area of northeastern region? Now, in this regard, let us understand the first suggestion is the need to meet political aspirations of the local people. Now, you undertake behind all of this violence which have been done by the insurgency groups, the primary motive of these groups are political in nature, that they want autonomy to regulate and legislate according to their own wishes. So, in this regard, most of the insurgency area prone areas in the region, they can be extended political protection, which is currently present in the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution, and this will help reduce the insecurity among the people. Also, to deal with the problem of multiple bodies and agencies who are responsible for implementation, we can enhance the role of Northeastern Council, because this council has representation not just of union government but also that of state governments as well. So, in this regard, this body is in a pole position to execute and implement multiple projects, which will also involve coordination and cooperation among various agencies. Further, in terms of dealing with security threats, there has been increasing demand of improving the coordination levels with the state police agencies also, because why? States are primarily responsible for implementing and improving the law order of the region, and hence the security agencies of the central government, be it the armed forces, intelligence agencies, they should be coordinating more and more with the state governments. And also, to reduce the insecurity among the insurgents group, we can also undertake the rationalization of Armed Force Special Powers Act, because although this act gives many powers to the armed forces, but it also creates possibility of armed forces excessively using their violent powers. So, to calm down the charged atmosphere of the region, we need to undertake rationalization of armed forces Special Powers Act, and also there is an inherent need to tackle illegal immigration. Why? Because these illegal immigrants, they are not just promoting insurgency, but they are also promoting flow of arms, ammunition, and funds from across the border. Hence, by tackling the legal immigration, we can strike at the root cause of insurgency, that is support of external actors. Hence, these were all the suggestions that I could give in today's topic of insurgency in Northeast. And with this, we move to second article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Indian Express as well as the Business Line newspaper. Now, these articles, both of them, they highlight one thing, that is government are undertaking various steps in order to promote and use of green hydrogen in the country. Now, green hydrogen, it is important. Why? Because first of all, this deals with GS paper 3 part, which is highlights infrastructure in relation to energy, and also it is important in the environmental efforts, because green hydrogen aims to look to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases, which is which takes place due to uh, emission and production of various energy sources, and also because in the mains of the year 2022 a question appeared on renewable energy. Now it is important to note that this green hydrogen, or hydrogen for that matter, when it is produced by use of renewable energy, it is called as a green hydrogen. Now there are various types of hydrogen which is categorized based on the method in which hydrogen is produced. Because if we produce hydrogen utilizing natural gas, this process is called gray hydrogen because it leads to emission of large amount of carbon dioxide, which is a form of greenhouse gases. But rather than emission of this carbon dioxide, if we decide to harness and store this carbon dioxide through various measures, the hydrogen in that regard will be called as blue hydrogen. Whereas if we are producing hydrogen through renewable energy sources, it is called green hydrogen. While on the other hand, if we produce hydrogen through use of nuclear power, it is termed as pink hydrogen. So these are the few examples of how we categorize hydrogen. Now, the topic of our today's discussion is green hydrogen, which you can understand, as I've already highlighted, uses renewable energy. Now, how is green hydrogen produced? Now, hydrogen, generally, green hydrogen is produced by a process called electrolysis of water. Now, in electrolysis of water, which you can understand, the chemical formula of water is H2O, we break down the compound of water into separate compound, that is hydrogen, oxygen, through a process of electrolysis. Now this process of electrolysis utilizes a power source such as this battery. Now, this can be any power source, be it power we supplied through renewable resources or non-renewable resources. Now, whenever we utilize this renewable energy to power the electrolysis method, it is called as the method to produce green hydrogen, which when produced can be utilized to power many other sectors. So this is what green hydrogen is. That is, whenever you utilize renewable energy sources such as solar energy or wind energy to power or to undertake the electrolysis of water, then the resultant hydrogen which is produced is called green hydrogen. Now, why are on earth are we producing green hydrogen? Why? What is the rationale of producing green hydrogen? Now you have to understand that hydrogen has high energy density, which means hydrogen generates 2.5 times more power per ton as compared to other sources such as natural gas. Which means that for every amount of hydrogen, you can produce 2.5 times more energy, which means again hydrogen is highly energy dense. Hence, the amount of fuel which is required to produce electricity would be 2.5 times less in case of hydrogen. Also, there are many production facilities such as production of steel, aluminium, which is utilizing a melting source called blast furnace. Now, these blast furnace quite commonly they are fueled by fossil sources that are coal as well as natural gases. And this blast furnace process, it also emits large amount of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide as well as nitrous oxide. Now, if we power these blast furnace through this green hydrogen, it will reduce as much as 3.6 gigatons, that amount of carbon dioxide emission, by the year 2030. So you can highlight the energy emitting or greenhouse gas emitting sources such as production of steel and aluminum can be instead shifted to utilizing of green hydrogen, which will also reduce the amount of emission of greenhouse gases. Also, greenhouse gases can be utilized to power electric vehicles as well, because currently there are electric vehicles called battery electric vehicles which are powered by battery. Now, to charge these batteries you require external source of energy, which also undertakes some time to charge these batteries. So instead of charging these batteries, we can power electric vehicles utilizing green hydrogen, which powers the fuel cell in the electric vehicles. Now, hydrogen driven fuel cell vehicles, they are more suitable for heavy vehicles also. And also the time required to charge these vehicles will also be minimized. That is why green hydrogen is a good power source for battery electric vehicles, because it is not just more suitable for heavy vehicles, but it is also, it takes less amount of time to fill these vehicles with green hydrogen. Also, as you can understand, 85% of our nation's fossil fuel demand, especially crude oil demand, is fulfilled by imports. And also 44% of natural gas demand is also fulfilled by imports. And because of this, we are dependent on various other countries to meet our energy demands. This not just creates potential for geopolitical pressures on India, but it also results into huge outflow of foreign currency out of India. So, in order to make India more and more energy secure, we need to produce green hydrogen, which will also reduce our dependence on other energy sources such as crude oil as well as natural gases. Further, green hydrogen production in India also envisages India to make a global production hub of green hydrogen, because Quad nations have uh, thought this through as an alternative to decrease the geopolitical impact of China. So, not just will be able to produce green hydrogen for our domestic use, but we can also make India a global export hub for green hydrogen, which will not just create more and more employment in the sector, but will also enable India to earn more and more forex reserves. So, based on this, you can highlight that bringing green hydrogen is a very good plan. But is it? The question right now is not, because there are many challenges in the adoption of green hydrogen even today. The first challenge in this regard is the highest capital cost which is incurred in setting up of green hydrogen plants, because green hydrogen plant, as I've already highlighted, requires a process of electrolysis which is undertaken by machines known as electrolyzer. Now, these electrolyzer machines currently are quite expensive because they use quite a lot of expensive materials such as platinum and palladium. That is why, to set up any green hydrogen plant, you require high cost of capital, which is currently existing only with large corporate houses. Also, because of high capital cost, the economic viability of producing green hydrogen right now is not true. Why? Because currently, to produce per kilogram of green hydrogen, we incur as much as $4 to $7 per kilogram of green hydrogen, which is not viable as far as powering of various sectors is concerned, because to make green hydrogen economically viable, we need the rate of green hydrogen to be $1 per kilogram, which is 4 times more than what is being incurred right now. Also, there are a lot of storage difficulty as far as storing of green hydrogen is concerned, because in gaseous state, we require huge amount of pressure, which is as much as 350 to 700 atmospheric pressure, in order to successfully store the green hydrogen in gaseous form. Whereas on the other hand, in liquid form, the hydrogen needs to be cooled down to as much as minus 252 degrees centigrade. So, undertaking such high pressure and low temperature conditions again incurs huge amount of cost, which again makes the green hydrogen economically unviable. Also, green hydrogen in terms of safety is rather unsafe in nature because in terms of transportation and storage, there is a risk of leaking as far as risk of catching fire to the green hydrogen, which makes safety a very big issue of green hydrogen. Further, to establish the entire supply chain of green hydrogen, we require large amount of skilled workforce because various studies have highlighted as much as 2.8 lakh people you require skilled labor across the entire supply chain of green hydrogen, which is currently absent in case of India. So there is lack of skill required or skilled labor to undertake various stages of production of green hydrogen. Also, the development and production of green hydrogen across the world is in its nascent stage. Hence, there is lack of global standards in this regard also, which undertakes export and production of green hydrogen across the country a difficult proposition. So these were the challenges that are there in adoption of green hydrogen, and in this regard, let us understand what should be the way forward in order to make green hydrogen an economically viable energy source. The first reason and the first suggestion is obviously to reduce the cost of green hydrogen by bringing it to the levels of $1 per kilogram by the year 2030. So for that, we need domestic manufacturing of electrolyzers, and we also need to extend various sense of incentives to many green hydrogen companies. Further, India should also undertake research and development in the field of green hydrogen by giving the industry as much as $1 billion to undertake research and development efforts, because these developments will help develop technologies which will help us reduce the cost of manufacturing electrolyzer, and it will also promote the domestic manufacturing and supply of electrolyzers which will be used to manufacture green hydrogen. Also, to make the green hydrogen more economically viable energy source, we need to extend fiscal or financial incentives to the companies who undertake manufacturing of green hydrogen as well. And these can be in form of viable gap funding or production linked incentive, or also by reducing the burden of taxes and duties on imports and production of greenhouse gas equipments. Further, we need to also complement the efforts which are currently undertaken by central government with that of efforts of the state government in this regard, because not just the uh, central government should be extending incentives, but the state government can also undertake or extend incentives in form of cheaper land and cheap labor force, which will again make this industry more and more financially viable. Further, in the recent times, we are witnessing that across the world, especially in the Western countries, there has been increasing demand of products which are made utilizing clean energy sources. So, in this regard, India's key exports such as steel and aluminium, they can be in demand in Western countries if these steel and aluminiums they are produced using clean energy sources such as green hydrogen. And because of that, we need to undertake skill development and capacity building of our industry, because for them to undertake manufacturing activities utilizing this green hydrogen, which will again promote the exports of these products into other countries such as Western nations. That this is all for our today's discussion on green hydrogen. And with this, we move to next set of articles. Now let us move to the next set of articles. This particular article, which you can see on the screen, is it appeared in the Hindu newspaper, that is in the op-ed section. Now this news article highlights that there are two centrally sponsored schemes, and there have been gap between the allocations which have been made to these schemes and the outcomes of the scheme because of various reasons. Now this news article, it is important from GS paper to syllabus, because you can see Syllabus itself highlights issues relating to development and management of social sector services, particularly with relation to health sector. Also, questions have been appearing in the mains examination on the health sector, which you can see right here. Now, let us simplify this particular editorial, which highlights two schemes. And these schemes are centrally sponsored schemes, which means that they are financed by both central as well as state governments at various ratios, that is 60 to 40 in normal states as well as 90 to 10 for states which are northeastern states. Now, the funding of these schemes are undertaken by both the government. However, the implementation of these schemes are under the responsibility of state governments. Now, there are two schemes in this regard. The first is Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission Scheme, which is abbreviated as PM Abhim scheme. Now, this scheme undertakes the construction of health infrastructure by building health and wellness centers, block level public health units, construction of district public health labs, and also health critical care hospital blocks in the districts of our country. Also, the second scheme is the Human Resources for Health and Medical Education scheme, which looks to increase the capacity of medical education by establishing new medical colleges, nursing and paramedical colleges, and also by strengthening the district hospital and converting them into medical colleges, which you can understand will not just increase the seats for medical education, but will also enable better training of our healthcare personnel. Now, according to today's article, there has been various challenges which are faced in the implementation of this scheme. First is the fund utilization, which is undertaken in this scheme is quite low, because for this scheme the article highlights that only 29% of the funds have been utilized, whereas for the second scheme only quarter of funds, that is 25% of funds have been utilized, and these are due to multiple reasons. First of all, that to undertake construction of district public health lab, the state governments, they are required to integrate them with the existing labs, which again takes some time. And also to undertake sorry, to undertake construction of critical care and block level public health units, it requires construction activities, which is also a time taking effort. Now, the funding which is available under these schemes, they are provided to the states utilizing the schemes which are recommended by the Union Finance Commission of the country. And because these funds are tied in nature, that is why the state governments have not been able to undertake the utilization of this scheme quite effectively. Further, the various colleges which have been established under this scheme, they also face several faculty and specialist shortages. For example, the new 13 or 12 aims which have been constructed across the country, there are as many as 40% of teaching staff which is lying vacant. As far as state medical colleges are concerned, the figure stands at 30%, because as many as 30% of teaching seats they are vacant in state medical colleges, whereas manning of specialists in the district health centers are concerned, here as many as one third seats are vacant. That is why absence of faculty and specialists, it also brings several challenges in the outcomes of this scheme. Also, as you can understand, as these schemes are centrally sponsored in nature, hence state, they are responsible for funding as much as 40% of the funds which are required for implementation of this scheme. However, many states across the country, be it Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, or states such as Telangana or Kerala, they are under the various burden or constrained states fiscal capacity, and these states have been constrained in fiscal capacity because of their populist measures that they are undertaking, such as passage of open or old pension scheme, or giving money to various sections of the society, which has brought their fiscal conditions under severe strain. And as a result, these state governments, they are unable to contribute as per their required contribution is concerned. So these are the three challenges which is faced currently. And in this regard, let us understand what should be the ideal way forward. First, naturally, is to strengthen the fiscal capacity of these states so that they can contribute their 40% of funds to the scheme, which will again increase the utilization of funds. Further, we need also undertake efforts to address the human resource shortages both in healthcare centers as well as medical colleges in our country. Further, there is also a need to strengthen the public finance management because reducing the amount of tied funds which are available to the state governments, because state government should also be provided the autonomy to increasingly spend the money as far as the implementation of the scheme is concerned. With this, let us move to the next set of articles which you can understand. If you open today's NCRT, you can witness various provisions of the Constitution, such as fundamental rights or even the preamble of the Constitution, are given in the NCRT booklets. Now, the point of me explaining this is that there is a need to teach students about the importance of India's constitution, which is also been highlighted in this the Hindu news article by the president of the key opposition party, that is Indian National Congress. Now, various provisions of the Constitution of India has been periodically asked by the UPSC. For example, this 2020 question on what is constitutional government. Also, if you look at the syllabus of prelims, it directly highlights Indian polity and governance, and it mentions the Constitution of India. So, in this regard, let us understand what is constitution and what is a related term called constitutionalism. Now, as you can understand, sorry, now as you can understand, the term constitution, it highlights a document which in India is the supreme law of the land. That is the constitution, and with its provision, it is the highest law of the land, and every authority in the country is ultimately subservient to this very written document. And it is a closely related term called constitutionalism, which means it is a kind of political philosophy which limits the power of government. How? Because the constitution itself is prescribes certain conditions which ensures that people who are living under the constitutional system, they have liberty and justice. Also, let us understand how constitution ensures constitutionalism. Now, Constitution of India, for first of all, it is a written document which cannot be altered utilizing a simple amendment process. Hence, this constitutional amendment process is a difficult process. Also, this is a fundamental law of the land, which you can understand. It provides the various framework of the government, and based only on this framework, the various levels of government in sorry, various levels of government in India, they operate. So this is the feature of constitution, that it prescribes a framework, and the government of the day, they should also operate in this established framework itself. Now you can understand by that, by providing the framework to the government, it is looking to limit the power of the government. Why? Because government also, like people like you and I, are ultimately subservient to the provisions of the constitution, which limits the power of the government. Also, provisions such as Schedule 7th of the Constitution, it delineates the power of union government and it separates the power with that of state government. Hence, you can understand union government is not having infinite powers. Now, this is called division of power. Further, the Constitution, it also looks to protect the rights of individual citizens by provisions such as Part 3rd of the Constitution that highlights fundamental rights such as right to freedom of speech and expression, right to live life of dignity. And in case of violation of this fundamental rights, the Constitution also provides right to constitutional remedies, which is given in the Article 32 of the Constitution. Also, the Constitution provides of separation of powers of the state, that is, various organs of the state, be it legislative organ, executive organ, or the judicial organ, they are to be separated from one and another. And in case of impinging the powers of any of the government, the other organ can check the powers of these organ, which is called system of checks and balances. Now, this separation of power and system of checks and balances, they are ultimately responsible for one thing, that is, they ensures the accountability of government to not just legislature but also to the judicial system of the government. And all of this, that is existence of a written constitution and the process of constitutionalism, it is required to undertake one thing, that is, it safeguards the democracy of India. That is, by undertaking or establishing constitutional bodies and various accountability measures, the constitution itself is safeguarding the Indian democratic system. So, based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. Which of the following statements is not correct with respect to constitutionalism? Constitutionalism in India. The first statement is constitutionalism ensures that state powers are limited by the constitution, which is correct. As I've highlighted, that constitution limits the power of the government. The existence of fundamental right is a key feature of constitutionalism. Again, correct. As I've highlighted here, the separation of power among different state organs is crucial for constitutionalism. Again, correct, because it ensures accountability and system of checks and balances. Coming to the fourth statement, constitutionalism allows unrestricted exercise of state power to maintain order and stability. Again, incorrect, because constitutionalism restricts the power of state and not gives them the unrestricted power. Hence, the not correct statement in this regard is option D, which is your correct answer to this practice question. Now, let us quickly move to the last article of the day, which again appeared in the Hindu newspaper, that is in the text and context section. Now, this news article highlights a body called Andaman and Nicobar Integrated Development Cooperation, which you can see has various environmental responsibility or also, and there have been certain allegations of this body violating the environmental ecology of a key area called Nicobar Islands. Also, questions related to various PSUs and bodies have been frequently asked by UPSC. Hence, this topic in news becomes important from prelims examination. Now let us understand what is this body, which is headquartered in the city of Port Blair. Now this body was created back in 1998 under the Companies Act, which makes this body a legal body. Also, this body has an objective to develop and commercially exploit the natural resources for balanced and environmental friendly development of the territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Now, the main activities that this body undertakes is trading of petroleum products, Indian made foreign liquor and milk, as well as managing the tourism resorts in the area, in addition to undertaking infrastructure development for tourism and fisheries. And the current work which has been in news recently is the undertaking of a mega infrastructure project in the island of Great Nicobar, because this project undertakes development of a transshipment port, a greenfield airport, tourism and township project, as well as power generation project, all of which has allegations of destroying the environmental and ecology of region. That is why the article highlights that this body lacks necessary policy and implementation expertise, and also there are various conflicts of interest and governance issue with this organization. So, with this information, let us now solve the practice question with reference to Andaman and Nicobar Island Development Corporation. Consider the following statement. It is a quasi-government agency. Again, sorry, this is a quasi-government agency which is based in New Delhi. Again, an incorrect statement because it is headquartered in Port Blair. Now, the second statement, it aims to develop and commercially exploit the natural resources for sustainable development of the country. It is correct because it is the objective of this body. So, based on this information, option B is the right answer. And with this, we conclude our today's discussion of Daily News Simplified. And until then, I bid you a very good night. So, we'll see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m.